When your toddler screams, "Mine," it can sound selfish to an adult. Maybe their sibling picked up the truck they were just using, another child reached for their snack, or someone moved a toy they had mentally claimed even though they were not touching it anymore. From the outside, the reaction can feel too big, especially when the object is small and the screaming is loud. But for a toddler, "mine" often means something more complicated than "I want everything for myself." It can mean, "I was still using that. I did not understand why it changed," or "this feels unfair and I do not know how to explain it yet." A 2025 study in infancy suggests that toddlers may be developing fairness expectations much earlier than many adults assume. Researchers Merk Maristo, Sarah Shapansky, and Karin Strid studied 54 toddlers around 18 months old using a nonverbal fairness task. The toddlers watched an animated mouse distribute bananas to two monkeys, while researchers looked at how they responded to equal and unequal outcomes. The study also collected information about social factors such as caregiver mental state language, sibling presence, and preschool attendance. The researchers did not find a significant link between caregiver mental state language and fairness expectations, and siblings did not clearly predict those expectations either. But toddlers who attended preschool showed more sensitivity to unfair outcomes, suggesting that early peer experiences may play a role in how young children begin to notice fairness. That does not mean an 18-month-old understands fairness like an adult. It does not mean every "mine" is reasonable. But it does mean parents should be careful before treating every possessive reaction as pure selfishness. The main idea of this video is that "mine" is often early fairness language. Toddlers are still learning what belongs to them, what belongs to someone else, what it means to take a turn, what it means to wait, and what happens when two people want the same thing. They do not yet have the impulse control or language to explain all of that calmly, so the word "mine" comes out loud, urgent, and emotional. The behavior may look rude, but underneath it is often a young child trying to make sense of ownership and fairness with a brain that is still under construction. This is why a toy fight at home can become so intense. Imagine your toddler has been driving a toy truck across the floor, then leaves it for a moment to grab another block. Their sibling picks up the truck, and your toddler suddenly screams, "Mine," and runs over. To an adult, it may look like they abandoned the truck and now want it only because someone else touched it. But from the toddler's perspective, the play may not have been finished. The truck was still part of their plan, and when someone else took it, the situation felt unfair before they had the words to say why. In that moment, the parent's job is not to agree with every possessive demand, and it is not to shame the child for having one. The job is to translate the situation into a rule the child can slowly understand. You might say, "You were still using the truck, and you did not like that it was picked up," before adding what happens next. If the toddler really was still using it, you can help protect the turn. If the sibling had a fair claim to it, you can help your toddler wait. The important part is that the child hears the structure of the moment, not just a label like selfish or rude. This is where many parents accidentally make "mine" bigger. They hear the possessive tone and rush to correct the character problem because no parent wants to raise a child who grabs, screams, or refuses to share. But if the adult moves too quickly into "stop being selfish" or "give it back right now," the child may not learn fairness. They may only learn that adults step in suddenly and decide who loses. A calmer response gives the toddler more information. It helps them understand who was using the object, whether the turn was finished, whether someone else is waiting, and what the next fair step will be. That kind of response still holds boundaries, but it treats "mine" as a signal to teach from instead of a moral failure to shut down. This matters because toddlers experience ownership very concretely. If something was in their hands, part of their game, near their body, or included in the plan they had in their mind, they may experience it as "mine" even when an adult would not. They are still learning the difference between owning something, using something, borrowing something, wanting something, and waiting for something. Those differences are obvious to adults, but they are not obvious to a toddler in the middle of a toy conflict. The word "mine" can also show up when a child is trying to create predictability. Young children often feel safer when they know what belongs where, who is using what, and what happens next. When another child suddenly changes the plan, the toddler may react strongly because the social rule feels unclear. It is not only about the toy. It is about the feeling that the world just became less predictable. That is why the response should usually be slower than the reaction. If a child grabs a toy and shouts, "Mine," the adult can stop the grabbing while still naming what happened. A sentence like, "You wanted the truck back because you were still playing with it, and I won't let you grab it from his hands," gives both pieces of the lesson. It recognizes the child's fairness concern while still setting a boundary around the behavior. The child learns that their feeling can be understood, but their action still has limits. This is different from permissive parenting. Permissive parenting would let the loudest child win. A fair response does not do that. It protects turns, stops grabbing, helps waiting, and teaches children how to move from "I want it" to "there is a fair way to get a turn." The difference is that the adult is not treating the child's possessiveness as proof of bad character. Sibling situations make this especially tricky because parents often walk in halfway through. One child is yelling, one child is holding the toy, and nobody agrees about who had it first. In those moments, it can help to avoid making an instant moral judgment and instead ask what the rule should be now. If one child was clearly using the toy, their turn can be protected for a reasonable amount of time. If the toy had been left for a while, it may be available. If both children want it badly, a timer or a concrete turn ending can help make the situation visible. The goal is not to investigate every toy conflict like a courtroom. The goal is to give children a repeated experience of fairness that is more predictable than whoever screams first. That repeated experience is where learning happens. The 2025 infancy study is useful because it reminds us that fairness expectations can appear very early and may be shaped by social experience. Toddlers who attended preschool showed more sensitivity to unfair outcomes, which may reflect the fact that peer environments give children more practice with weighting, distribution, turns, and seeing what happens when resources are shared unequally. At home, those same lessons happen in tiny moments. A child learns that taking from someone else is not okay. They also learn that someone else taking from them is not okay. They learn that wanting something does not mean they get it immediately, but it also does not mean their desire is ignored. They learn that a turn can end, but it should not disappear randomly. Over time, this is how mine slowly becomes my turn, your turn, I'm not done, and can I have it next? That is the direction parents are aiming for. You do not need to panic because your toddler says mine. You also do not need to let them control every object in the room. A better middle path is to treat mine as information. It tells you that your child is working on ownership, fairness, control, and waiting, but does not yet have the language or regulation to handle those ideas calmly. So when mine shows up, the question is not only, how do I stop this? The better question is, what fairness rule does my child need help understanding right now? Maybe they need to learn that someone else was using it first. Maybe they need reassurance that their own turn will not be taken away immediately. Maybe they need help ending a turn. Maybe they need help waiting near you while another child finishes. The answer depends on the moment, but the approach stays the same. Slow the conflict down enough to teach the rule underneath it. If this happens in your home, tell me in the comments what your child says mine about the most. Is it a favorite toy, food, a sibling's things, your attention, or something they only care about once another child touches it? The answer usually shows which part of fairness your child is trying to understand. And if you want more parenting videos that turn research into practical everyday decisions, subscribe, because many toddler behaviors make more sense when we stop treating them as bad manners and start seeing the skills underneath. The main thing to remember is that mine is not always pure selfishness. Sometimes it is early fairness language from a child who is still learning what belongs to them, what belongs to others, and how to handle the hard moment when two people want the same thing.